Greetings, this is Bill, and on this video we're going to take a look at, yes, the Watchtower once again getting busted for lying to its own followers about their resources. We all know how they'll take scholars and theologians and the people they quote, they take way out of context, or they put in a fraction of a sentence here and a fraction here, put it together to build a sentence that never even existed. Well, if you're Jehovah's Witness, you're probably going to want to sit down, because this is really going to take you by storm. To begin with, let's stay, keeping in mind, if the 607 B.C.E. date for the destruction of Jerusalem is not accurate, 1914 and everything else collapses like a house of cards. So, with that in mind, let's begin with point number 1. If you have your God's Word for us through Jeremiah, turn to page 55 in it, and we're going to go through fact number 1. Now, I want to focus on this paragraph speaking about archaeologist Eilat Mazur. Archaeologist Eilat Mazur reports unearthing a small clay seal impression or bulla. It was found in 2005 during a supervised excavation of a layer dating back to when Jerusalem was destroyed in 607 BCE. The seal bears the ancient Hebrew name Yahushua ben Shalemahu, which is Jucal, the son of Shelemiah, in English. Now, what you read here gives the impression as if archaeologist Dr. Eilat Mazur supports the 607 BCE date for the destruction of Jerusalem. She does not, and in an email denied it outright. But just so that you have proof she doesn't believe in 607 BCE, here you go. Here's a screenshot from a PBS online article dealing with the Palace of King David. So you can look up the website and go see it for yourself. Just a little bit further down in the article, you'll see this. A picture of Dr. Mazur, and there's a story above this that talks about how her father was also an archaeologist. I don't know if her grandfather was, but it runs in the family. Either way, the article goes on to say that Mazur thinks that, centuries later, the tunnel may have served as an escape route during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem in 607 BCE. Well, wait, it doesn't say, it says 586 BC. And the email that she sent says she did not believe in 607. She doesn't hold to that. She doesn't teach that. It's 586, but yet the Watchtower lies to their own people to support this pivotal 607 because 1914 and everything else falls like a house of cards. All right, here's where things really get interesting. Here's the October. It's an October-November issue where they covered the destruction of Jerusalem. And oddly enough, just as an aside, in the October Watchtower, it asks this question. Now, they show a picture of a guy. There goes a guy. He's walking out of the Watchtower, right? They're leaving in droves because someone asked him the question, have you been lied to? And if you're a follower of the Watchtower, yeah, you've been lied to by your leadership. Now, in the October issue, it states that this is the first of 2 articles in consecutive issues of the Watchtower that discuss scholarly questions surrounding the date of the destruction of ancient Jerusalem. This 2-part series presents thorough research and Bible-based answers to questions that have puzzled some readers. Is it really thoroughly researched? Really? Now, here's what happens. When they decide, why are they doing this? Because the editorial staff gets together and says, look, we're being questioned on 607 BCE being a legitimate date because people have access to the internet, they're looking into things, and they are questioning the faithful and discreet slave. And that can't be done because if 607 falls, everything else dissolves like a chunk of ice in a blast furnace. So they ask the question, when was ancient Jerusalem destroyed? Part 1. Why it matters? Well, it matters because if it falls, your whole system falls with it. What the evidence shows. If you have the evidence, the truth, you shouldn't have to lie about your resources. According to historians and archaeologists, 586 or 587 BCE is generally accepted as the year of Jerusalem's destruction. Why do Jehovah's Witnesses say it was 607 BCE? What is your basis for this date? Their basis is lies. Lies and misrepresentation of their sources, as you will see. Now, switch over to the November 1st Watchtower, where we see part 2. We haven't even checked out the resources, the references in part 1. But here's some stuff in part 2. Now, get the article, go to page 24, where we're going to focus on the comments of Professor John Steele. In the interest of time, I'm going right to astronomical tablets, second paragraph. What have experts said? They're quoting experts to garner support, right? Experts agree that the Babylonians had developed extensive charts and schemes to predict when eclipses would most likely occur. Here it gets interesting. But could the Babylonians project backward to calculate when eclipses had occurred in the past? Quote, it is possible, states Professor John Steele, that some of the earliest predictions could have been made by projecting the schemes backwards when the text was compiled. Italics ours, because they want to italicize and highlight the words that support their theory of 607. Does Professor John Steele agree or oppose the 607 BCE date? Well, I'm going to provide a link that takes you to jehovahswitnesses.net, and there's an article here, and this is what you'll see. A woman named Elimam, who wrote to Dr. John M. Steele. I love this woman. Here's a woman who says, I want to find the facts. She doesn't bury her head in the sand. All right, she's checking all things and holding fast to that which is true. And what does she do? She writes to John M. Steele, whose work is cited in footnote 18a of the article. He gave me permission to share the following response. Now, if you don't believe this woman, you write to John M. Steele and find out for yourself. Because are you going to trust the man himself, or are you going to trust your leadership who has a history of misrepresenting all their sources because they're biased, they're deceiving you, they're lying to you to support their doctrines? Here's what Dr. Steele said. Dear Miss Ellie, thank you for your email concerning the citation of my work in the recent Watchtower article. As you suggest, the author of this piece is completely misrepresenting what I wrote, both in what they say about the lunar 3 measurement and in what I say about the possibility of retrocalculation of eclipses. My comments on the latter were restricted to a distant and small group of texts which are different to the diary they are discussing. Just glancing through the Watchtower article, I can see that they have also misrepresented the views of other scholars by selective quotation out of context. I've looked at the date of the VAT 4956 on several occasions and see no possibility that it can be dated to anything other than the conventional date. Regards, John Steele. Now, for how long have I been banging the drum that they are lying to you, they are misrepresenting, just like in the Should You Believe in the Trinity booklet, just like in their 607 beliefs, everything they're holding to. Do you understand how if they let this slip through their fingers, millions of dollars are gone out of the watch? They'll fold. They have to cling to this, and they need you to be deceived. They need you to remain in the dark and not check them out. Do you understand the criticalness of what I am saying to you right now? This, my friends, is what a false prophet does. Now don't go anywhere. Sit down, because we've got some more. Right? Believe it or not, there's more. As you continue to read this article, you'll see a quote, several quotes actually. They cite Professor R.H. Sack. He's a leading authority on cuneiform documents, and they quote him in several different places. Now, I'm going to leave it up to you folks to do your own, due diligence here. But as you read this, you'll see what he says. And the Watchtower is trying to make it look like Ronald Sack supports their position, right? But we now know better. We now know you cannot trust a false prophet. So, here's an email and correspondence to Dr. Sack. Hi, Ronald. I was reading the latest Watchtower magazine, November 1st, 2011, produced by the Jehovah's Witnesses, and it mentioned your name. I would like to know if you support the 587 or 607 date for the destruction of Jerusalem. The article tries to refute that researchers, historians, scholars, and archaeologists support the date 587. I would like to know if you concur. Thanks. Now, this is not coming from a researcher. This is coming from just one of us, just a guy off the street, right? And he sends this out at almost 11 o'clock, 10:49, right? 10:50 in the morning on Thursday, September 8th, right? Less than 5.5 hours later, he gets a response from the source who states this: the Watchtower article is a lie. The correct date is 5/87. I have never been interviewed of this subject. Ron Sack. Now, when you go back and look at what the Watchtower wants you to believe, they state that this two-part series presents thoroughly researched. This is thorough research? No, this is misrepresentation, manipulation, and deception, which is what false prophets are known for. And I wanted to say thanks, many thanks to Wake Up Witness. I have 2 words to describe Wake Up Witness: hard work, diligence, and awareness. And, let's see, one, two. Well, regardless, thank you very much. And what you folks may want to do is, you get a chance, get over to Wake Up Witness and just give them a big sloppy kiss, okay? What you are looking at and almost seeing are 607 alphabetized names of scholars that all oppose the Watchtower idea that Jerusalem was destroyed in 607 B.C.E. Now, if you want to hold to the boys in Brooklyn having more scholarly information and more knowledge than these 607 scholars, then that's like saying 2 + 2 is 3, and I'm taking it to the grave with me no matter who and how many people tell me 2 + 2 is 4. Do so at your own peril.